And welcome back. And I know that it is much more fun to talk with one another than listen to me. I know that I've managed to distribute a great deal of confusion this morning, and I leave that confusion with you. May the Lord bless it to you and lead you into truth by His Spirit. Now, our goal this morning with our hub, we're going to take 30 minutes to tell you what's going on behind the scenes. It's your chance to ask any questions, no holds barred. And you can do that at hopecityedinburgh.org/hub, hopecityedinburgh.org/hub. We'll keep that open for a few more days, so if something occurs to you tomorrow or on the loo, you can submit that question, and then we'll respond to any questions that we haven't addressed live offline in the coming weeks. So please do ask away and know that we would like to answer. What are we going to talk about this morning? Because I'm a preacher, we're going to do people, pounds, places, and then some Q&A. People, pounds, and places. 3 Ps, baby. You saw it here. So we're going to dive right in so that you do still get some lunch, all right? And we're going to talk about people. And the first thing I want to say a few words about participation at Hope City. One of our distinctive values here is participation, and we want church to feel like it's a family meal every week. Like everyone is a part of making it happen. So that's like an idealized family meal rather than an actual family meal, but an idealized family meal where everyone is a part of trying to make it happen. The alternative might be something more like a restaurant. You rock up, you don't expect to do any cooking, you're not expecting to wash any dishes, somebody serves you, and then you can go. That's not what we're aiming for church to be like. We're aiming for it to be like a family meal. So we want participation both in our gatherings and our scattered life through the week. And the way we've gone about that, firstly, is by working really hard to encourage everyone to serve at least somewhere in the life of the church. Not serving just now, but you'd like to change that? Bum. HopeCityEdinburgh.org/serve. Tell us, and we'd love to help you get engaged in the life of the church. It's a great way to feel part of things. It's a great way to get connected. It's a great way to get involved. There are lots of options standing at the front, behind the scenes, Sundays, during the week. On top of that, we don't want church to be a place where everyone's serving, but just on a rota. We have this thing that we call the leadership path. And the idea of this is to create a way to step further and further and further into the life of the church, into leading at Hope City, to give you opportunities to grow, to spread your wings. If you're enjoying serving on a team, if you've got a passion for something and gifts for it, then we want to be able to give you more ownership, more opportunity, and more responsibility. We don't want to keep everything centrally controlled and tightly held by a few people in the middle, because we're not able to keep growing as a church if we play like that. There's so much that makes up church, so many places where we wish we could go further and do better. If it's all just left to a few people, everything stagnates and tops out. We'll never be what we could as a church. So we want to make a way to share things out more and more, invite more and more people to feel like they're an owner of part of what makes up church. So we've got this leadership path, and we're beginning to invite people from some teams to step up and lead that team. We give them ownership. We ask them to connect the team that's serving in an area, and we ask them to think about ways to multiply that leadership and draw others in. We agree priorities and goals with them, and then we set them free to own that area. We give them room to run and support for that. Some of our team leaders who want to go further, we invite them to become ministry leaders, picking up a group of related teams or a whole area of church life, where perhaps there's a team doing this and a team doing that and a big gap in the middle. Well, our ministry leader is in the right place to see that gap and help us fill it, to rally the church behind those priorities. So, for example, Ed here leads our First Steps ministry, all the bits that go together to help newcomers from their first contact with church to finding a relationship with somebody here. And that's made up of lots of different pieces, and there's room for us to keep working on it. Further along the leadership path, we have what we call directors, people who the elders have entrusted a key area of church life to, a key priority, and they ask them to rally us as a church behind that priority. Help us think how we can do it better and better. Overseeing what's already happening, giving direction and energy and focus to it, imagining where we could go. Like mission, for example. Carolyn's our director for Bless. She helps our church keep mission as an area of focus and priority. She helps us keep that focus on sharing our hope with those around. Now, Each church hub, we want to share with you new people we've asked to take steps in the leadership path so you know who's who and what's what. But we also want to recognize and celebrate those who are passing on the torch too. So I just want to say a huge thank you this morning to some of our leaders stepping down. And first of all, Ewan. Now, Ewan has led Hope City Kids from the dawn of Hope City. Led us through so many growth steps, one after the other. Led us from building to building. Led us from how many children were there at the first Hope City Kids? Like 4, 5? Yeah, from 4 or 5 children to, if you've been out this door during a Sunday morning, there are like seething hordes of children out there. Ewan has led us in organization, in planning, in material, in team, reflection, in learning. Everyone whose children have been a part of our program over these years, I owe you a thank you. I owe you a big thank you. And I want to say thank you for taking on and running with such excellence. It's an important, challenging, and a really key part of our church. I think that is 6 years service. Thank you. Also this morning, I want to say thank you to Dave Martin, who was stepping back from leading our youth house for the time being. And also want to say a thank you to Kino, who waltzed off to London and as a result has stepped back from leading our live stream production team. But thank you both very much for picking up that responsibility and for taking us forward. Now, as well as some thank yous, we've got some welcomes to celebrate. So first up, we want to welcome Mary Cameron, who is picking up Hope City Kids from Ewan. She's taking the baton as this continues to grow and develop, and you can see the fruit of her labors as you walk down this corridor and look to the left already. Really excited to see what's ahead. Thank you, Mary, for taking on that role. You might also know that I'm quite a big fan of our lighting rig, where I want to say thank you to Adrian, who is picking up our lighting. Looking forward to seeing your ideas come to fruition. I'm looking forward to not being responsible for the flashing light on the back of that light there that isn't working anymore. It's superb. And also want to say thank you to Pat, who is picking up the team of prayers for the people. We're thinking about that more as something that we can develop, something that we can continue to invest in and continue to grow. So he's leading our Gathering House team and the prayers of the people. Now I'm going to keep moving because we've got loads to cover and we'd really like some time for a Q&A. So next up on the people front, did you know that we have a finance team? Did you know that? Yes, you did, or at least you assumed we had one. We're a reasonably complex beast of a church now. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to keep us operating smoothly when it comes to money. The finance team have taken great care of that for us through lots of iterations and again, through growth from something that is reasonably simple to something that is really quite sophisticated at this stage. We make a particular point of letting you know who's on the finance team because they're the only ones who have access to the confidential donor information. I don't get to see anything about who gives what, just the finance team, just so you know. A few changes we wanted to flag to you as a church. So for the last while, we've been paying a professional who's not part of Hope City to do some of our mechanical bookkeeping and operations and logging work. And that professional is changing from Angie Martin to Rachel Hamilton. Some of you knew Angie Martin. Some of you might actually know Rachel Hamilton. But we are thankful to Angie for carrying us through this last step. Excited to begin to work with Rachel as we move forward. Second, Jennifer Grimman stepped down from the finance team. Thank you again for serving us in that way. And this kind of often invisible work is so important to the life of the church. We want to celebrate all the different ways that people are serving. So here's the current team after those changes. We've got Angus Andrew, we've got Matt Barker and Ian Cameron, Twinkle Coe, Ruth Longmuir, and Andrew Rose, and Johannes, except he's just walking out the door. So I didn't put Johannes on that list. He's fired. You're fired. That's what we're going to do. Thank you, team, for making our finances look smooth and look simple. That wraps up part one, people. Next up, pounds, from the finance team to pounds. What could be a smoother transition than that? This is actually, I'm led to believe, some people's favorite topic. Yes, actually some people's favorite topic. When this comes up in our church meetings, they're like, yes, money. I love that. So, this is especially for you. The first thing to say about money at Hope City is we are funded by you. Hope City's an independent church. That means there's no magic pot of money in the sky. There's no thing that just keeps us going. Virtually all of our income comes from your regular and irregular giving. And if you're not supporting us yet, but you'd be willing to get started, you can do that. HopeCityEdinburgh.org/give. But as I asked you to think about giving, I need to remind all of us of some of the important things the Bible teaches us about that. So here we go. First, giving is not to be reluctant or forced. Instead, God wants you to be a willing and a cheerful giver. So do we. Don't give reluctantly or under compulsion. Nobody is ever going to do the heavy on you at Hope City to extract your cash. Second, giving is always according to what you have or in proportion to what you have, not what others have. So it's between you and God. And whether that seems lots or little that you have to give, it's the heart that counts. Remember, Jesus speaks about the widow giving such a small coin in the temple and how that was more than all the money the rich people put in because it was about the significance to her, the degree of her resources. Finally, give knowing it's blessed to give, right? It's a privilege. It can even be a joy to give. And giving what God has entrusted you back to him for his work here, giving as a steward of God's resources. So that's how we want you to think about giving. So let's look at the scores on the doors. Everyone ready for some scores on the doors? How have we been spending your money? Trailing 12 months. We use 12 months because that includes all the different seasons of a year. So it eliminates some of the typical variability. Big chunks, venue, staff, and training. Venue is this place here. It costs us $38,000 to rent it, and then a bunch of money to heat and to maintain it. Staff, we have the privilege of lots of team members volunteering and donating their time, but we also pay. We have just a few paid staff at present, and they're adding up. Training always a priority for us, so that's why this training budget is quite large. Just now we've got Kat, Pat, and Ellen all as funded part-time trainees, and we love being able to invest in that way for the wider kingdom and for our own future growth. Admin looks like quite a big block there. That includes our professional fees and various things we can't avoid, subscriptions to keep things running. It's a fair old chunk, but we're not wasting your money because it also pays for like our bookkeeping and things like that. Gatherings, that's your coffee. If you like coffee, it costs money. And week-to-week expenses for Sundays. CapEx, capital expenditure, is buying furniture, equipment, hardware, that sort of thing. Lights, cables, this stage that I'm standing on, things like that. Just, you know, what's what. And mission here, 24,000, looks like a big number. That is a big number. It's a combination of all the costs of the events and special things that we've run through the year. So we ran a set of fringe gigs this summer. We ran craft nights, we ran Christmas and Easter specials, we've run an artist collective. All of those fit in this budget, but the way I've pulled the numbers, I've just got the total we spent on it here. What I haven't managed to subtract is all the money that was paid for tickets and coming along or given specifically to fund things. So looks like a lot of money. We got some of that back in ticket fees. A lot of that was given directly to support the specific projects that have been going on. But we would like to spend pretty serious money on mission every year. Oh, the other thing we're doing with that fund is we're supporting our partner church, Gracemount Community Church. We're funding part of their assistant pastor. So that's thousands of pounds in there too. Okay, over on the right here, 12 months to March 23, there's something pretty significant, something pretty important there. We have some costs that go up and down. We can choose whether we spend them or not. Like if we're going to buy a stage, we can choose not to do that. We could stand on the floor. With other costs we can't really choose about. Either we keep paying people's salaries or there's like, you know, France and people burning things out the front of the building. So regular costs are the ones we can't really choose about, the ones we have to pay. And here's the amazing thing. The last 12 months, our regular costs are covered by our regular giving. This is a new milestone for us as a church. We've not been here before, and that's quite exciting. So we're able to sustain ourselves. Up to this point, we've been living off of one-off gifts and special income and things like that. We're actually balanced the books. So that's a wonderful thing to celebrate. I'm just going to give God thanks for that briefly, shall I? Father God, what a milestone. Thank you that you've always been faithful to us. Thank you that you've always provided everything we've needed, and thank you that we can celebrate this milestone of having regular income
that covers our regular expenditure. But thank you that you provided for us up to here and that you will provide for us going forward. Help us to trust you and be people of faith. Amen. Giving and spending at a high level, there's lots more detail and it's not state secrets. So if you are the sort of person who wants to know more, you can know more. We will give you all the data that you would like. We'll talk through any of the details. We'll give you access to the detailed reports. You're welcome to it. Please just ask if you would like to see that. That's where we are. What's changed? This is how these last 12 months compare to the prior. You can see our costs move around year over year. Just a few little observations. More CapEx a year back than this year. We bought chairs, we bought a lighting rig, we did some heating improvements to the building, and this last year we've been able to enjoy the benefit of that. Venue costs rise this year because we're actually here rather than locked in our houses, and that means we heat the building and we trash it, and so it needs maintained. Good riddance, pandemic. Step up in staff costs because Twinkle has joined the team, expanding our operational capability to match our growing church. Training steps up with us taking Pat on board as our resident for church planting. Mission up, we spent more on bigger events because we could actually see people and have people come to things. Wasn't that nice? That was really nice. No secrets, all the details available to you. Any questions, please do ask and we will do our best to answer them for you. But I'm going to keep moving. What's coming down the pipe from a finance point of view? Well, obviously we've been talking a lot about how we're going to respond to growth as a church from a space point of view, and any new space is going to have a financial impact that has the potential to be a pretty epic financial impact. But I'm going to talk more about space in a minute, so I'm going to pass on from that just now. Second, you'll know we're working towards planting with Pat. That's going to have financial implications. We hope to send people with them, and they'll take their giving with them. So we'll have less giving here. We hope to be able to support him as he takes first steps out in there from our funds as well. So that's another big thing coming down the road. And then third, as many of you will know, Dustin, who served as our director of multiplication and who, with his lovely family, were able to come back with a newborn baby first time this week. Very exciting, very cute as well. Dustin is returning to the US with his lovely and growing family this summer for an extended period. Now, I'm so thankful for the gift that Dustin has been to Hope City, and especially to me, working closely alongside him as a trusted team member, a valued colleague, a friend. And I'm really sorry to see him go, but we know that our God is a sovereign God and a God who leads, and he knows what he's doing, has good plans for Dustin and his family. But that does leave a large gap in our team, and so the elders are considering whether we want to aim to make a staff appointment as Hope City continues to grow. Perhaps somebody relatively senior to work alongside me. Now, obviously, that would have a significant financial impact for us as a church as well. We've had such a privilege of people being able to volunteer their time. It's wonderful. It's been a great thing, or being supported from elsewhere as we grow as a church, but perhaps it's time that we funded more of our team ourselves. Now, if all that talk about increasing costs is making you worried, first, the Lord has always been faithful to us, always provided what we needed every single time, and we are absolutely confident of that. But second, we've had some very encouraging signals from potential partner churches too. We've been kind of dating lots of churches. They like us. We looked at their profile. We like them. They've got interests that are similar to our interests. We've been kind of shyly courting around one another. But if we had a giant hole in the bank balance, we could see if they want to put a ring on it. So that's one possibility there. A growing church, but we also should be stewarding our individual resources well. Can I encourage you once more? Please consider supporting Hope City financially if you feel Hope City is your church home. Okay, people, pounds, ask any questions. We'll try and get to them all. Last thing. Oh yeah, please consider supporting. Place. In case you didn't notice, we are actually getting fairly full here on Sunday mornings. Every now and then it can be a bit tricky to find a seat, especially if you're in a group of more than one person. Late last year, the elders started thinking seriously about how we're going to respond to that as a church, how we respond to the growth that God has given us. We concluded we should try and make room for that growth so that if God keeps giving it, there'll be space for it. We try and make room for that, and our plan A for how to do that was to explore whether a larger space would be something that's possible for us. Now, if that's news to you, please go find and read our detailed thinking about this. We publish it each week in our weekly email. You can find it in the app in 30 seconds on the homepage. But very briefly, okay, the story so far. Okay, the elders concluded that we should push the door on a larger space, and we identified 4 key barriers that stood between us and a larger space. We felt like these are 4 doors God can open or God can shut to make it clear what we should do. 4 doors that he could really easily close. First, we need to find a suitable building somewhere accessible, somewhere big enough, somewhere with a high ceiling that you need for larger assemblies of people. Second, we need a landlord willing to take on a church. Loads of people won't even talk to us, don't want our money. They just want ordinary. Some landlords even are not happy about churches at all. Third, we need planning permission from the council to use a space as a church. And it's not straightforward to get this. It's not straightforward to know if you would get this or not. And fourth and finally, if we found something, we'd have to be able to plausibly afford it, right? It could be financially impossible. And given that we've just managed to balance the books here, it's not at all trivial to assume we'd be able to do that somewhere else. 4 doors, easy for God to close, so we thought we would do our initial search. And it only turned up a few buildings that could even plausibly work for us as a church in our target area of the right size with a landlord who'd even talk to us. And then we ran into a bit of a major roadblock, right? We had been thinking primarily about leasing warehouses because they got high ceilings and most office space is too low for you to put large groups of people in a big assembly room. And also secretly because I rather like the idea of a church in a warehouse. But we learned that the cost of making a big warehouse complying with building regulations for a place of assembly is pretty massive, like £1 million massive. That's about the size of it. And that meant when you're leasing someone, when you're just renting it, you'd have to pay that £1 million to sort it out. And then when your rental ends and they kick you out, you'd have to take it all back away again. And that's pretty prohibitive. It also means you have to pay it all up front. You can't finance that cost. You can't mortgage it or spread it out. So we started talking, okay, if we can't do a lease space, what about buying somewhere? Maybe we should buy somewhere. And we could finance both the purchase and the redevelopment costs with a mortgage and then pay it back over an extended period. That could make it affordable. I ran the numbers. It looked plausible. I mean, you'd have to have faith, but it looked plausible. But the problem is there's not actually a lot of buildings for sale. Most people who own buildings like owning a building and like people paying them money for it every month. Most people who own buildings are not trying to sell them. Well, when I say not a lot, there's virtually no buildings for sale. So then our property agent introduced us to the only live option that we have on deck at present. Drum roll. If this doesn't work, we think this is probably the end of the road, at least for now, and we need to move on to plan B. So we haven't talked much about this place publicly just yet because it's early days, but I thought this morning it would be right to share some more details with you so that you can pray, so you can see, and so that you can think. Now, the 4 doors we talked about, not one of those is definitely open for this building yet, but not one of them is definitely closed either. So we're kind of still at that stage. So I'm going to introduce it to you so you can pray. Now, what's good about this place? It has an amazing location, like unbelievable location. If we were choosing anywhere to be, we would be right there. It's got tons of parking. It's got so much parking, you would never get that much parking from our eco-mad, car-hating council today. It's got loads of parking. What's less sure about it? The size. It is stupid big. One of the team I took around described it as an aircraft carrier. That's quite a good way of thinking about it. It is like so unfathomably big. It's mad. It's kind of cool in theory, the sort of place you can get lost in, but in practice, when we walked around it, it was pretty overwhelming. It means things like the heating system is an industrial heating system. You know, it means like the glazing is 2 million square miles of glazing, and if something goes wrong, it is going to be an epic. Okay, so it's big. What else? Planning, we don't know whether we can use this place as a church or not. Our planning consultants think we have a really good case. I've read the case they put together on this. It's totally convincing. If I was a planning officer, we're done. We've got it. But that's not how it actually works. So we have a formal consultation with the council in flight just now. In the next couple of weeks, they'll respond to us and they'll say, yes, we buy it, or no way. So that's one door that's going to get answered pretty quick. And then price. Okay, so we looked at the building because it's for sale. It's for sale for a stupid amount of money, but it's a huge building, so it's kind of okay. But that said, when we looked at it, we thought, this is too big to buy right now. We're not proposing to buy it. Instead, the owner has to pay huge taxes every year to the council simply because they have an empty building, because the council likes to, I don't know, destroy businesses or something like that. Nobody wants this building because, it's big, empty, old. Nobody wants it. It's likely to stay empty. If we as a church were to occupy it and turn it into a church, suddenly these taxes go away. So the landlord they just might be willing to give it to us on the cheap or on the free, which would be rather nice. And they give it time for us to figure out whether we want to go big or go home and buy or not. So we might be able to get it cheap on the short term to save them taxes. But that's just the medium stuff about it, okay? What's bad? It is imperfect. If we were building a church building, we would never, ever build this. I reckon it's workable, but if you know me, I'm quite optimistic. You have to have an active imagination to see how this could work. It's not where I'd imagined we would be next. We'll have to be creative. We'll have to be flexible. We'll have to want it to work for this to work. It's also tatty. It's dated. It's got lots of chaotic parts, the building systems, the heating, the building itself, the windows. Everything is pretty old. It's not like 18th century, right? It's not like a church with a slate roof that is going to fall down. This is 80s construction, so it's not that bad. But that is fairly old. It's not going to feel like a shiny new building you just painted. It's not going to feel like that. And if we did do this money-saving deal where they give it to us cheap because we're turning it into a church and saving them taxes, the only way that would work is if we didn't have much security of tenure with them. So they would give us a short notice period. If anyone actually shows up with money, they're like, bye. It's been nice knowing you, church. Goodbye, we'll take the money. So that we would have to be able to deal with that level of insecurity. Now, I don't think that's a showstopper. I don't think that's a showstopper because we got security here for 2 more years. We can't leave the lease in this building for 2 more years. And I don't think it's a showstopper because we are a church who've taken risks from the beginning and stepped out and stepped into things. And we can take a risk, and we can survive taking a risk. It will grow our faith. It wouldn't be a bad thing. But it's not to be taken lightly, okay? So that's the kind of preamble, getting you ready. You want to meet it? Yeah. Here it is on a map, okay? It's 5 Red Hughes rig. That red map pin and the circle down the bottom is where we are just now. So it's not far away. It's at the Guile Center at the M&S end. Switch to a satellite, and you can see the red car park all around it and see the huge Guile parking areas super close by. And there's the tram stop just over there and bus stops at the Guile. That's kind of handy, isn't it? And then enhance masses of car parking. And see that glassy triangle in the middle? That's a multi-story atrium. That's why an office building could conceivably work for us. Most office spaces are 2.5 to 3 meters tall. If you make a room double this size that's 3 meters tall, it feels like an oppressive, nasty place. We need a higher head height to make a large assembly space. There it is in the middle. Now it's imperfect, okay? It's not the higher space I would build, but it could be the core of an assembly room for us. Let's walk up to it. Thank you, Street View. It's not the most horrible building you've ever seen, is it? And this one is not actually a lovely building. If those of you who remember our first acquaintance with this building, it's probably perhaps slightly better. You can see the big bay windows there at the end of each of the arms of the triangle. They actually create rather nice spaces inside the building. There's some good rooms in it. There's a nice pendulum view on the later floors. You can also see 4 stories. That's quite a lot of stories. That would be quite substantial. No way we could use that much space. But maybe we can use the ground floor and a bit of the first floor, and we can find something creative to do with the rest. Maybe we can just seal it up and say, leave it alone. Children, don't get lost up there. Our architect sketched 280 seats for us in that middle triangle, basically unaltered. And then if you were to take out say, that wall behind the back seats, you could easily add a few hundred more seats. If you were to think about the first floor in the atrium and remove some of those walls, you could get balconies. So you can create a pretty seriously large space here. It's feasible. Endless kids' rooms on the ground floor, and then on every other floor, again and again. So much space for coffee. We can give our artists an entire floor. Just do whatever you like with it. We'll never see you again. It'll be fine. Just imagine playing sardines in this building. Wouldn't it be cool? Be like, pack some food, because we're never going to find you, ever. Right, that's your 30-second introduction to the building. Okay, here's the critical thing to do here. It's critical we manage our expectations. We are a long, long way from anywhere done here. Good fuel for prayer, or good fuel for panic, if you're kind of the panicky type. We're a long way away from here. Don't jump to conclusions. None of those 4 barriers have been overcome, but none of those 4 doors have been shut on us yet either. Where do we go from here? Quickly for you, we're going to get an in-principle, formal opinion from the Council on Planning. If that's positive, it's very likely that we'd then be able to get the detailed permission that we will need, but we'd still need detailed. We're going to get outline terms from the landlord, and we can see whether they're acceptable. That'll probably happen in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So then we'll have our first indication. Are we going? Are we not going? Then I would suggest we go visit, and the charismatics among us can feel the building. The kind of risk-averse among us can be terrified by the building, and the optimistic and imaginative can be excited by the building. But we can feel it. We can walk in and go like, it's mad. Those of us who walked around the building, it was quite an experience. It was mad. But we'll do that, and then we'll make a prayerful, gutsy decision. Are we going to do it, or are we not? If we make the decision, we've got to get the detail of the negotiation. That's going to take months, probably, because it always does, even if you don't want it. We have to do detailed planning permission. So we will have to make changes to the building for fire exits and blah, 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 regulation, blah, blah, blah. So we'll have to get designs, get those approved by planning, get them done on the building. Could we conceivably move in this year? I'm optimistic. Maybe. Now, this far, we have spent some money on this project. Sadly, we've had to spend thousands of pounds even to get this far on the project. But cross that go line, and we're signing big checks at that point. So that's where it starts to add up really fast. A way off still, but we're seriously close to full here. We are going to do something. We're not just going to run into the ceiling here. We are going to do something, and we're going to move, or we're probably going to go multi-site probably this year. That's probably what's going to happen. Now, we have to manage our expectations. Okay, again, just to say, this is not done. Don't think you're moving in. Don't pencil your car space on the floor. We're not there, okay? Massive, massive risks between us and this. But it is a real option. 100 ways, 300 ways it could go down in flames. Maybe we don't want this at all. Maybe it's just totally the wrong thing. That's why we're going to pray that God will open or close the door. So that's content for today. A little bit of time for Q&A. But first, let me pray. Father God, I want to thank you for the people of Hope City. Thank you for just so many people serving, leading, shaping, and guiding. Thank you for faithfulness. Thank you for those who serve with little visibility, serve with humility and diligence. Thank you that you keep adding to our number. Lord, I want to thank you for pounds that you've provided everything we need all the way. We've never run short because what you order, you pay for. Please would you provide for us. Please would you challenge each one of us to be a good steward of what you've entrusted to us. Please, Lord, might it never be money that stops your vision. And Lord, I want to pray about places. We don't know what the right thing to do is. We do know there's a short list of options, and we know there are doors you could close. So we pray, Lord, open or close these doors. Lead us and guide us. Help us to be able to press forward with faith and with courage and with enthusiasm if you open those doors. Help us to humbly accept your will if you close those doors and make wise decisions about where to go next. praise you, and may you have all the glory from Hope City. Amen. Amen. Now, how's everyone feeling? We'll do 5 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll leave the Q&A open so you can continue to submit questions, and then we'll respond to it in the app. And we'll put some links in the weekly email as well. If you don't have the app or the weekly email, get the app and get the weekly email, okay? So a little bit of Q&A just now, and I don't have a controller. So does anyone have a controller handy? No. Oh, well, that's easy. Does that building have enough toilets? So you may or may not know that one of the controlling issues on the number of people you can put in a space is the provision of sanitary ware. And in particular, the number of females you can have in a building per female cubicle is surprisingly small. And one of the biggest constraints on the number of people you can assemble is how many female loos you've got. Does that building have enough toilets? It does. It's got about like 200 gazillion over 4 floors. Now, planning might not accept that 4th floor loos count as 1st floor loos, in which case the architect says because of the layout of the loos, they're up against a wall. It'd be super easy to double onto the other side. So we're confident we can deliver enough loos in that new space. Seems a bit excessive. Isn't planting more important? Do we want to go towards a megachurch? So if you want to read the document we put together about responding to growth, I think that engages with that argument. Do we want to become a megachurch? No. Do we want to put a block on what God is doing? Do we want to say no to the growth he is giving? No. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing there. Isn't planting more important? Planting is very important, but we've discovered that it is harder and slower than we'd imagined. We're still committed to planting, and we will remain committed to planting. So we're not saying we'll do this and not do that. We're going to do both and, thanks very much, because we can, perhaps. The hope was when we outgrew this place, we'd plant and send out. Why has that vision changed again? Please see the document that we published that answers exactly that question. The short answer is a combination of factors. We overcalculated the capacity of this building. We were too optimistic about how many seats and how many people you could get into it. We had a different picture of the growth curve. We've grown more rapidly, and that means that the assimilation and the extent to which newcomers are deeply embedded into the Hope City DNA is more limited. So we'll be sending out a kind of younger generation of people, and planting is harder than we imagined it would be. So those are the sorts of factors. More detail in the document. What's the difference between a director and an elder? The elders, that's the Bible word for the leaders of the church. They're the ones who have the ultimate responsibility and decision-making authority here at Hope City. The elders entrust to directors responsibility for shepherding and guiding an area of church life like our mission or our worship and arts or our discipleship, but that's done under the authority of the elders. And so our directors report to our elders quarterly what's happened and talk about plans going forwards, and then the elders input into that. So that's how elders and directors work together. Do we have to keep the building name confidential? Who said that? Because you're right. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yes, we have to not plaster it everywhere. So what's happening is the landlord is negotiating with the previous tenant over dilapidations charges, the bill they have to pay when they leave, and the previous tenant would be more argumentative if they knew there might be a successor to them in the building, where at the moment they think they've just stitched the landlord up with an unlettable building, and so they're expecting to get hurt by the landlord on exit charges. So yes, please don't plaster that name everywhere. Don't look too suspect in the car park of the building, but as you drive by, do pray that God would open or close that door. So there's a few weeks, we think, for those dilapidation negotiations to conclude, at which point things might become more public. Yeah, sorry. And do we have plans to partner with overseas churches? It's something that the elders have talked about a number of times. We think that it would be wonderful for us to have both upstream partners who kind of see us as their kind of supported and encouraged church, and for us to have downstream partners who we are supporting and encouraging in turn. We talked about kind of making semi-arbitrary links with other churches, and we always feel like that's been a high risk. We wanted to have a relational foundation for a connection to another church to partner deeply with it, and we haven't found that just yet, but we have pushed it a few doors. We would hope in the medium term to end up partnered with somebody that we would bless and encourage. But I guess when we talk about partnership, we would really like bi-directional partnership, one that both sides benefit from and commit to and engage in. So we wouldn't want to just write checks for people style partnership. We'd want we bless and encourage one another style partnership. I'm going to stop there for now, and we're going to respond to, sorry. Let me just quickly, plan B. Okay, if we don't end up with a larger space, what's the plan? Our plan is not to just run out of room and tell people to go away. We considered lots of different options, and the elders' view is that the right thing to do would be to go multi-site. So to aim to gather as a church in multiple places, because we think that's got the best path towards church planting, and that will preserve the diversity of the church in both congregations, where we think an earlier and a later gathering is going to have more demographic specialization, and we think it'll end up with a higher cost to serving. You want to read more details of that? Again, point you back to the document that you can find on the app. I'm going to stop there for now, but what we'll do is we'll hoover up all these questions and respond to them more fully in the coming weeks. We'll give you some more days to ask questions and to vote on things you'd like to be answered. And I want to say thank you very much for being Hope City Church.
Somebody's asking where to find the documents. So home screen, yes?
Yeah, so if you open the app, and if you can't open the app, then just need to get the weekly email. So on the app, if you scroll down, there's a picture of a house, and it says responding to growth underneath it. If you click on that picture of a house, then you've got the elders report and plans is the top item on the list, and the next item down is detail for people who like details. So that's where you can find that. I'm going to pray. I'm going to send you off into your days. Father God, we want to bring, again, all our praise to you. We say thank you for what you've done, what you've let us be a part of. Say thank you for the impact that Hope City's made on our lives. Say thank you for the lives that we've seen changed as a church. Oh Lord, we pray, would you lead and guide us? Would you keep us close to you? Would you help us to hear your voice? Would you move our hearts to go your ways? Might we see your kingdom coming. Might your will be done here as it is in heaven. Give us what we need, Lord. Amen. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you sticking around. And we'll publish the recording as well if you want to look back over anything. Thanks, team.